What's up, everybody? It's time to once again salute the leader of the C Nation as we charge forth with You Can't See Me. And I guess I'll be honest now, the real reason I didn't do Hulkamania this year, I was not going to watch season 3 of Hogan Knows Best. Not yet. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to scratch that reality TV itch once again, which is why this year I'm reviewing season 1 of Total Bellas, a reality show on the E! Network that debuted in 2016. It was the spinoff to the highly successful Total Divas, which started 3 years earlier and introduced a whole new audience to WWE. I've never seen an episode of the show, but a lot of people did, prompting E! to give Nikki and Brie Bella their own show. And it turns out that was successful as well, as it ran for 6 seasons before ultimately wrapping up in 2021. Like I said, I'm a newborn babe when it comes to WWE-produced reality television, but I have a friend who does know a thing or two about that because, hey, she watches these shows on her Twitch channel all the time. Please welcome friend of the channel, the former SmackDown reviewer, my good friend Alex, Queen of the Ring.
Hey Brian, it's good to see you again. It's an honor to officially welcome you to the world of WWE reality television. Buddy, you are in for a wild ride, but it is nothing like Total Divas. However, with Total Bellas, you get a really good glimpse of where these individuals were back in 2016, from Nikki Bella's neck injury to Daniel Bryan's adjustment to retirement, also his weird obsession with salt lamps in the bedroom. But the heart and soul of Total Bellas is the sisterhood between Nikki and Brie Bella. There are plenty of unhinged chaos, yet heartwarming moments to look forward to with Total Bellas.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to learn more about the Bellas from this show, but you know what? This is a John Cena themed month on the channel, which is why I leapt at the chance to review this show, because I know John Cena was dating Nikki Bella around this time. And you know, I think we as fans were a little too hard on John Cena during his prime. Like, we didn't know what we had back then, you know? So I'm pretty optimistic as to how he'll do on this show. I mean, he's a consummate professional, and hey, I love so many of the movies he's been in, so I'm hopeful he'll be a real positive presence on the show.
So you hadn't seen any of Cena on Total Divas?
Correct.
Not even a little bit?
Nope, going into this show totally blind. It's kind of my thing. Ask Twitter.
Just let me know what you think of him after you're done.
Oh, well, that's a nice peaceful chime. Oh, God. Episode 1 is titled The Cena House Rules and kicks off with one of the more infamous scenes of the entire season as John Cena explains, well, his house rules.
Respect the house as if it was your own. And if your habits are leaving your towels on the floor, you can change your habits and respect ours. Every morning we will have morning coffee together. We will have an evening fire outside. Make your bed every day and keep track of your laundry. Do not flush anything except toilet paper down the toilet.
Not the kind of message I'd expect from Mr. Ruck Fools. Time to hit pause on that and go through a whole lot of exposition. At the end of season 5 of Total Divas, it's revealed that Nikki's neck injury could be career-ending, and in the first few minutes of the spin-off, we learn that she's had successful surgery to repair the issue.
This is a big one for the neck.
Damn it, Doc, you just pulled out part of her brain instead! This is all happening at around the same time Bryan Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, is coming to terms with his retirement due to concussions. Danielson is far and away the best part of this show, not because he has the most interesting story, but because he's the only one on there who laughs. You know, like a human being would.
There's a lot of places for her to run to. I don't know if you know. They were very excited.
They recap Bryan's retirement in Seattle, a very touching moment in Raw's history. And speaking of touching, I sure wish the reality TV cameras had caught that whole Vince Titus O'Neil debacle at the very end of the show. Nikki's boyfriend, John Cena, is also at home rehabbing a shoulder injury, and with most everyone getting time off work for a while, Brie and Bryan agree to move into John's palatial Tampa estate to help take care of Nikki. Brie and Nikki's mother, Kathy, and brother JJ are there as well, seemingly to also help Nikki, but with what? Who knows? Nearly 8.5 minutes pass before we actually get the show's intro, and they throw a lot of info at you in those 10 seconds. 4 million Instagram followers, born 16 minutes apart in San Diego, longest reigning women's champion, technically incorrect, but this audience does not care. We follow Nikki and Cena, the latter of two almost exclusively wearing tap-out shirts on this show, as they head to the airport to pick up the family members. From the word go, we get the sense that John may be a little uptight.
No bending the rules.
John is okay with house guests, but he's always been like 2 days, that's it.
Then back at home, we get our first glimpse of Mama Bella's man, Johnny Ace himself, making his reality television debut. There are many examples in wrestling's history of workers who had a great charisma about them behind the scenes, but for whatever reason, it never translated to a wrestling crowd. In John Laurinaitis' case, though, he actually manages to be boring in both realms. Without getting too much into his storylines yet, when he is on camera, he's either a very bland piece of set design or a very bland shit stirrer, and there's very little in between. It's bad enough when you don't know what the guy is accused of, but now I just watch this feeling bored and gross about it.
You knew the twins before you knew me.
Boy, if the rumors are true, you ain't just whistling Dixie. And get this, those two are engaged here. Wow, 2024 Brian is just so happy for them. Man, this house is immaculate. God bless that Mount Rushmore money. I mean, it's literally built for reality television. He even has a copy of the Constitution. I love that the house is just covered wall to wall in stuff you almost don't want to even touch. Then they get a dog, like, okay, whatever. It's time for a formal dinner with the family. Very, very fancy. You can tell the Garcia family loves Downton Abbey because they reference it a whole lot in this episode alone.
Kind of like how the Downton Abbey family does it. How Downton Abbey do you feel now? Like sexual Downton Abbey.
Brian looks very uncomfortable wearing a suit and downright unnatural too. Everyone knows the tweed jacket's his best look. After he and Brie get razzed for following the house's no shoes rule a bit too literally, everyone makes their very natural procession down the stairs for their meal, and Cena can't stop killing any cool factor about him.
Don't think I'm not ready for that.
We don't need to do that right now.
I do. So why not?
We're back at the beginning of the episode where John is laying down all of his rules. Most of them aren't exactly outrageous or hard to understand, but he delivers them in such a way that is stern, condescending, and controlling. The only thing giving me the strength to press on here is how hilarious Johnny seems to find all this.
Formal dinner once every week, usually on Wednesday.
We are, after all, an NXT household.
This place is on 3 lakes. There are gators, and you walk towards one, you get what you deserve.
I mean, is that a house rule or more of a life in Florida rule?
The doors. 2 shut. Shut. Lift.
Oh, sure, he'll show you the doors, but how do they get through that glass ceiling? John?
If you guys are going to be up late, please text me or tell me, because this is a shoot first date, and I have a lot of guns.
Can I just say, I love Nikki's tribute to Joel Gertner on this episode. Dinner is concluded, so now it's time for some quiet conversation with the men and the women in separate rooms. It's meant to come off as posh and classy, but just seems weird and antiquated to me. And why would you bother including this shot of John's football helmet collection if you're not allowed to show any of the logos? In the smoking room, John asks Brian if he's thought about the next phase of his career.
You have such a brilliant mind for wrestling. You wouldn't want to do anything with that.
The part I hate about wrestling is the part where you don't wrestle.
After a talking head segment where Brian compares the situation to grieving the loss of a loved one, we see him on camera a minute later getting his face licked to death by his dog for 20 solid seconds, followed immediately by a smooch from Brie. Levity! Brian leaves town for a Comic-Con appearance, and the rest of the family head to a wine bar. Get used to this visual because nearly every scene of the entire show features at least one person sitting around and drinking wine. Seriously, the Cena, Garcia, Laurinaitis family is single-handedly keeping Tampa's wine industry afloat. Unlike how he came off on that first night, Cena is able to lighten up and crack jokes from time to time.
John came.
Forget it.
What?
A boat, Johnny, white linen, you, and semen as far as the eye can see. We've
yeah.
been handicapped, damn it. I'm a one-armed man. She has no neck. Why don't you just say, hey, dude, penis?
Someone get Nickelodeon on the line. I think I have an idea for an edgy reboot. During the conversation, Brie reveals that she and Brian haven't had sex in a while and that Brian detests quickies.
Ew. Listen how sensitive he is. Well, no,
Hey, whoa.
No, it grosses me out.
Intimacy is intimacy.
Point for you, John. Cena and his grape-flavored suit leaves for an engagement, and the rest of the crew go to another bar. Here they talk even more about their sex lives, which I'm not sure everyone is super stoked to be there for. The next day at the pool house, Cena is bit by Brie and Brian's dog Josie, and as one might expect, is not happy about it.
What you should do is you should call animal control.
John.
I'm not even going to use the word cool. That's just not acceptable.
Look, sometimes dogs just know, you know? A concerned Brian explains to Cena that Josie has anxiety, but the master of the house seems less than empathetic. Considering his close relationship to Vince McMahon, that definitely checks out. Brian and Brie attempt to set up a dog run for Josie in John's backyard, only to be immediately shut down by Nikki, which is the last straw.
I want to go back home. I'm over this.
It's 1 week in and Brian seems to have already given up on his hair. At the fancy dinner, Nikki lets John know that the house guests are terrified of him, which completely throws Cena for a loop.
Hold on, what happened? We're talking about dog fences. What the hold on.
Brie tries to explain that sometimes John can be intimidating, all while John looks incredibly intimidating. You're telling me he doesn't understand why a huge man giving this list of rules in a stern and cold way to people might be taken that way?
Do you want me to talk in a different voice?
You want me to say, hey, let's talk about stuff?
John says they can talk about it in the mornings and evenings to hash these things out, but doesn't seem to relent on any of the actual rules. It's gonna be a fun season, y'all. Episode 2, or Quickie Fix, further explores the sex lives of Brian and Brianna Danielson. It begins with the sisters and Brian out together. Naturally, the Bellas are drinking. By the way, in this episode, Nikki explains that because she can't exercise, she's restricting her diet from about 3,000 calories a day to 1,200. Now, that alone sounds like absolute torture, but you know, Nikki, you might be able to eat more food if you cut back on the wine a bit. Just saying. Nikki asks her sister and brother-in-law about their boning behavior, wondering why they can't have quick sex, and Brian seems surprised that Brie would ever share details about them with her sister. My guy, have you ever womaned? To prove his point about how he likes to take his time with things, he eats his dessert excruciatingly slowly, and someone watching this is definitely turned on. In our next scene, B&B complain about having to drive Nikki around all the time and do errands for her, even though I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they signed up for. Elsewhere in the episode, Johnny and Kathy plan to elope, which seems like something the producers of this show would want to shy them away from doing. I mean, this show is boring enough as it is. At least give us the reality TV wedding. In our next scene, Cena teaches Brie how to drive stick shift. Though you'd think he'd be just as happy to sternly reprimand her from the comfort and safety of the dinner table, it turns out his robotic demeanor makes him a pretty good teacher. But man, between seeing somebody learn how to drive stick and all this talk of dieting, this episode is giving me real anxiety. Brian feels insulted that John taught his wife how to drive a stick shift, so he wants to learn how to swim from Nikki or their sister-in-law Lexi. This is how I learned that Brian Danielson did not know how to swim.
That's probably why you wanted to get swimming lessons from Lexi.
No, I wanted to get swimming lessons from her because she knows how to swim and has taught people how to swim.
Why would Brie be jealous of Lexi because of her chest size? Brian's not going after Nikki, and she's just Brie with bigger boobs. I think she's safe. John spends all of his free time either rehabbing or going to the gym, which makes Nikki sad. Meanwhile, she and her sister seem to have very different definitions of making love.
There's moments that we look at each other and want each other so bad and we make love.
No, Quickie isn't making love, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
Come on, everyone knows it really isn't making love unless you've got a salt rock lamp on for that ambiance, baby. This week's fancy dinner is over, and the men are in their super secret clubhouse. It's here that Ace reveals to the lads he's looking at a prenup for he and Kathy. JJ's worried for his twice-divorced mother, making him the most prescient person on the entire show. Cena compares a prenup to a handgun and that it provides security, making Cena 2 for 2 on gun references so far this season.
I had to have your sister sign an agreement to live in the house. And it wasn't a one-pager, it's a 75-page agreement.
75 pages? Who are you, Sheldon Cooper? In our next scene...
You can take a nap, and I can explain to my family why.
Okay. You good
No,
morning coffee?
you're not serious, right? I can't say that to the family.
Why not? You guys have been incredibly open with each other about this subject up to this point. Brian explains that he doesn't like quickies because it's all focused on the penis. I mean, yeah, where's the intimacy? You know, treating the whole body. Where's the connection? Where are the seizures from the sex being too good and people thinking that you're dying? Later in the episode, John has promised to take Nikki to dinner, but she's already over her calories. She casually lies about how much she's eaten for the day, which sets Cena off and leads him to cancel the date entirely.
Now that I can't take you out to dinner, I'm gonna go try to get something productive done. I'm actually gonna go do something now, so you guys enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the evening.
What a weirdo. At least Cena shows a bit of humanity at the end of this episode, as he concedes that his drive to get healthy means he's been neglecting their relationship. Is every episode going to end with him learning a lesson? Brie brings up Ace's prenup talk to Kathy, who is just now hearing of this for the first time. The episode ends with a confrontation between them about the agreement. Kathy says she doesn't mind talking about it, but that she should have been the first to know about it. Ace counters by saying he considers the men he confided in to be his new family, and that such matters should be discussed with family. In my opinion, that's kind of a cop-out, but either way, Johnny already has an appointment with his lawyer set up, and they just agree to work it out. Good for them, and for her sake, I hope she didn't sign shit.
There is more to life than what you're living, so take a chance and face the wind.
Episode 3, Who's the Boss? The episode begins on a typical morning in this kooky funhouse of excitement as the gang watches Winston the dog eating his own crap. Surely that's a violation of one of John's rules, yes? With Brie being the only one among the 4 cleared to wrestle, she heads back on the road to build toward what they're calling her farewell match at WrestleMania 32, as 1/10 of a women's tag team match in the pre-show. Spoiler alert, it's not her last match. Brian and Nikki have a lot of time to hang out, which involves them watching Brie wrestle Summer Rae on Raw. My favorite part of this scene is them acting as if the post-match beatdown from Lana was a shoot.
What? She just hit Brie with her finisher. That's weird.
It's just sad, you know, with this kind of being her last hurrah.
If that got them riled up, I wonder how they reacted to Y2AJ breaking up on the same show. Also in this episode, JJ thinks he's being bossed around by his mother, who coincidentally is also his boss. He has a director title in her company, but feels more like an executive assistant. The other main plot explores more of Brian's future in a post-retirement world. Nikki wants to cheer B-Rye up by going to the performance center and trying to talk him into becoming a coach. Look closely enough and you can see all these new and future stars. Jason Jordan, Baron Corbin, Commander Aziz, Dax Harwood and Wesley Blake, the Vaudevillains, Chad Gable, Apollo Crews, Carmella maybe, and look, Sami Zayn.
Boom, you come up, he kicks you off. Yeah. You're going here, you're here, and then come back in and do the drop kick.
What the hell is this? Is this a smile? Am I finally enjoying the show? Help! Brian gives a taste of a more animalistic style he was developing while on the shelf, and for the first time all series, the guy looks comfortable in his skin and happy to be there. But the happiness is soon replaced with sadness when he reminds himself that he can't get back in the ring. Man, this show is really wafer thin in many areas, but Brian's story just puts things into perspective and makes you realize all the sacrifices wrestlers make and put their bodies through for our entertainment. What do you think, JJ?
I can see myself getting in the ring and throwing around a little bit. I don't know if you could put a good word in, because you're sort of the face of the company.
That's what you got out of that? In a nice fatherly chat with John Cena, the 29-year-old JJ reveals he suddenly wants to try his hand at wrestling and asks for help getting his foot in the door like any other job. Cena tries to tell him in the nicest way possible that he's not qualified.
I felt the same thing many years ago. Do you know what I did? No. I got into a ring and started working.
Having not gotten the hint, we later see Double J take the much more obvious route of asking his future stepfather, the EVP of Talent Relations, for a job.
I don't know if wrestling would be a fit for you. If I think you should go and train for 3 years to hopefully make it someday, I discourage it.
I'm kind of shocked that everyone in this show, including the Bellas, don't just rip JJ to shreds for this idea. I mean, did he ever talk with his sisters about the difficulties of the profession, the pain, the sacrifices, the miles? I guess he must have thought that since Brie and Nikki had a relatively easy entry into the business, that it must be that way for everybody. And if he hated the idea of being bossed around by his mother, he would not fare better in the performance center. I'm just shocked that Ace and Cena were as nice to him about it as they were. As Nikki continues to show Brian a good time without wrestling, things escalate between JJ and his mother. Jay tries to stand up for himself while Kathy refuses to concede that she's doing anything wrong as a boss. I will say that one of the most consistent things about this show is that every episode there's some big argument where you can see both sides of the situation, and this is definitely one of those arguments. But man, some of the forced drama really comes from the strangest places.
I need to print something up, so could we go to like a UPS or a FedEx printer?
I'm sure you know where to go. show. But sure, I could be the one to do the research, go find the place and go ahead and do it. Wait, so you want me to go print it out, bring it back, have you sign it, go back to scan it?
It's business related.
Dude, come on, it's a printing job. This feels so unnatural, I'm almost waiting for the video to freeze frame and be revealed as an ad for the UPS store. Finally, Brie plays peacemaker and takes the two on a walk. JJ explains he wants more responsibilities, and Brie tells Kathy not to go so hard on him, which sort of feels like two conflicting messages. Either way, Kathy reveals at the fancy dinner that she's giving him a 20% stake in the company as incentive for JJ to stay. Come for the family bonding, stay for the keen insight.
A lot of pronouns thrown around at this table.
You know what a pronoun is, Nicole?
I don't know, like, better.
Isn't it?
You'd think Nikki would know a thing or two about pronouns after working for Vince McMahon for so long. The episode ends with Brian and Brie going on a manatee tour. A mana tour, if you will. But despite the pleasant interactions with these majestic creatures, Brian continues to struggle with thoughts of his wrestling future. The fun continues on episode 4, Brian's Breaking Point. And yes, I'm close to my breaking point for every time Nikki fails to understand the English language.
Onomatopoeia. The formation of a word from a sound associated with what it's named. So like honk, boom, like holy smokes.
I was a Hooters girl. We served Shutter home.
Despite the title, the bigger story this week highlights how Brie straddles the widening gap between her family and her husband. Nikki complains all episode that Brie has changed and doesn't party as much as in her youth, and also argues with her about whether she should build a 4-bedroom house in Arizona or a 5-bedroom house. Yes, this is one of the biggest plot points in the episode. How did this show go 5 more seasons? The divide between the modest and the bougie is on full display as Nikki continues to be one of the most annoying people on earth.
I don't think your kids are gonna be like, oh, I'm in a 5,000 square foot home. I'm gonna consume a lot.
Have kids of your own. You raise them how you want to.
And they would be in a 15,000 square foot home with the San Diego beach house.
That's great.
And they would be very humble.
I've met a lot. No.
It escalates further once Brian accuses Nikki of not being humble, and it basically turns into Brie just cutting a promo on her.
There are people who work just as hard as you do who don't have hardly anything. All I want is to have a small house and to not have you butt in because you have a 15,000 square foot house and a beach house and 2 closets that are bigger than our bedroom.
Oh, hey everyone, if I may interject and break the tension here, remember that lady next to JJ in the intro who we haven't seen yet? Well, here she is, 4 episodes in, JJ's wife Lauren, here mostly to be another body for the main characters to talk at. Brian and Nikki make up one scene later, and Brie makes a toast at that night's fancy dinner to all their different opinions. During conversation, Nikki reveals she's gotten the call to come back for WrestleMania, but JJ one-ups her by announcing that he and his wife are expecting. Wow, you won't even let her tell everyone, man? In the super secret clubhouse, Daniel relays what happened earlier in the day to John, who couldn't seem to care less as long as everyone is cool now.
Good night, guys. And we will see you tomorrow?
Yes.
The kid's tired. We're all tired, but goddamn.
Yeah.
See him at the table just trying to get through.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of either of them on this show, but having the Johns talk a bit about Brian as fellow wrestlers could have been a big improvement. Certainly both men have experienced injuries in wrestling, some more serious than others, let alone the number of careers they've witnessed go down to injury. Maybe a little bit of insight into the grind? I don't know. To make matters worse, Brian's doctor has unfortunate news that whatever small chance he had of being cleared again had suddenly disappeared. Finding little opportunity for joy in the John Cena penitentiary, he's decided to head back home to Phoenix, which can only mean one thing: bachelorette party in Naples! As the ladies and JJ take the trip, once again the conversation of Brie having kids comes up, but Brie says that Brian needs to be in a good place mentally before they can think about starting a family.
I feel a child could be medication, too. I feel like it brings so much joy that there'd be less depression.
Sorry.
Just for further notice, one of your nuts is hanging out of your shorts.
And speaking of old man balls, Johnny himself arrives at the party to do a sultry dance for Kathy. Please make it stop. Quick, let's get some more overblown drama in here.
Careful! I'm down with you, Brie.
Oh, that's the lightest tackle I've ever seen, even for someone in a neck brace. Nikki's acting like Pitbull #1 over here. Undertaker's tombstone to Hulk Hogan was more vicious. Johnny has a heart-to-heart with Brie in the hot tub. As much as I love the idea of the producers feeding him lines, he actually does have some sage advice for the younger twin.
It's because she misses you, I think. She misses you being you how she knows you.
The episode ends when we discover that Brian wants to move to his hometown of Aberdeen, Washington for 3 months. The tension continues in episode 5, Bella Family Secrets. They're still talking about how much Brie has changed, but Brie finally counters by saying that Nikki has also changed after dating John Cena. The sisters finally reach an understanding before Brie leaves Florida to go help take care of Brian. In our next scene, Kathy gets a lap dance from a male stripper while Johnny watches. Not going there. And for goodness sake, could someone check on JJ?
I miss Brie. It makes me so happy when she's like in that mode.
Haha! I see what they did there. When JJ isn't slurring his words from all the alcohol he's been consuming, in this episode he puts a lot of pressure on his wife by openly and constantly wishing that their child be a boy.
So I think if I amp myself up, like, it's gonna be a boy, it's gonna be like, I feel like I'm telling myself, like, I'm gonna be able to handle a boy.
The logic's a little weird to me, but I can see what JJ's doing here. Becoming a first-time parent is scary as hell, even if you feel like you are ready. So I guess in his own way, he's leaning into the scary thing so he can feel better prepared for it. He does earn some redemption at the end when he apologizes to his wife in front of everyone. Then it's time for more partying. Woo! Raise the roof! More drinks! We now return to our heartbreaking story of a man and his brain injuries.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm coming back, but if there's a chance, then there's a chance, right?
Brian continues to be a mess, and Brie has to take time off the road again to take care of him. It's hard to watch him go through the emotional ups and downs of maybe there is a chance, what if there isn't? Watching him pacing around the house before breaking down in Brie's arms. We all know in hindsight how this story ends, but this stuff really hits different from anything else on the show, though the episode's arc does end on an uplifting note where Brian admits that helping himself will ultimately help all those around him. I admire and I appreciate how much Brie is supporting Brian here. It's wonderful. You can tell how much these two love each other, but the show is acting like a man being forced into retirement from the thing he loves the most, and a woman who is choosing to leave a business she fell into are remotely the same thing.
It's just one of those feelings that's going on with not being able to wrestle.
Well, it's hard. I mean, I'm coming to the end of my career, too. With WrestleMania around the corner, this is the busiest time for me.
Back in Florida, the bachelorette party is over and Nikki's out on a date with John at one of those wine and paint places. And of course, JJ's there too.
Everyone has their troubles and problems, and that's their troubles and problems.
That's my painting, man! So JJ's is like that, Nikki's is fairly normal, and John's is... Man, the points where he chooses to just cut loose, I don't get it. The final 8 minutes of the episode are dedicated to the biggest thing that was hyped about it all week, Kathy's breasts.
3 weeks ago, Kathy came to me and said, I felt a little lump in my breast.
Kathy doesn't want to share the info with her kids because she doesn't want to put a damper on the upcoming wedding, while Ace thinks that something as potentially serious as breast cancer should be discussed and acted upon quickly. Johnny spills the beans to Kathy's children, Nikki confronts her about the secrecy, and then after the commercial break, they go right to a health center to get Kathy screened. Holy shit, look at the efficiency of this version of the American healthcare system.
And you noticed this when?
3 weeks ago.
Probably about 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago? Okay.
We end with the cliffhanger of all cliffhangers and a PSA from the Susan G. Komen Foundation as we amble our way toward the season finale, Wedding Mania. Wait, Johnny Ace is getting married at the height of WrestleMania season, and Vince McMahon signed off on it? Okay, that's how you know reality TV is a work. Anyway, Kathy is fine. The lump was just from her implant, so there's some good news. As everyone's getting ready for the big wedding that week, Brie goes to an MMA gym to spice up her offense for her big WrestleMania match. We get a whole training montage of her learning a single move, which she ends up using at the very end of her match in Dallas. It's wedding day eve in Fort Lauderdale. Brian doesn't attend the wedding, but everyone else is there, including the twins' Nana. Nana is very sweet. After the rehearsal dinner, Johnny delivers a heartfelt message to Kathy and the rest of the family.
I've lost what I loved, and I feel like I just got it back.
Aww.
That makes sense.
It's almost really sweet. Almost. The next several minutes of the episode are taken up with more arguing between Brie and Nikki, and boy, the elder twin really seems to know how to make other people's problems her problems.
Brie going through a lot because of what Brian's going through, that hurts me, that affects me. When I see my twin affected, I get affected.
Things get tense when Nikki seems to downplay Brian's struggles or judge how he's been doing, and Brie resents her for that. Even the next day, they're still fighting as Nikki claims Brie is suffering because she cares too much about her husband.
The minute I feel like you start to drift and you get enough courage to finally put your foot down and say, no, I want to do these things.
You don't think I have courage in my marriage?
No.
Nikki keeps saying she wants her sister to be happy, but offers up zero constructive ideas on how to achieve that. Brie says she refuses to open up to her ever again, and they make up by the very next segment. Anyway, it's time for the big wedding on a Raymond luxury yacht.
That's not my name. I'm sorry, Raymond Luxury Yacht.
The ceremony goes swimmingly, but suddenly I'm wondering, where the hell's Road Warrior Animal in all this? You're telling me he couldn't be there for his own brother's wedding? Was the PO not good enough or something? Hell, put him on the show instead of Ace, then you'd have something. The officiant for the wedding is a friend of John Cena's, and coincidentally looks just like John Cena if he were in a video game that didn't have the rights to his likeness. The episode ends with Brian and Nikki going to their respective checkups, Danielson going to a naturopath for antioxidant IVs, and Nikki being told she's cleared to appear at WrestleMania. And after a teaser for the all-new 6th season of Total Divas, the first season of Total Bellas comes to a close. Now, I can't speak to the quality of the future seasons on this show. I have no idea if the show's quality gets any better from here, but I will say that season 1 was incredibly boring and that every episode felt like an eternity. But I will say this family seems a whole lot nicer to each other than the Hogans. What a shock when all the key players in your wrestler reality show are either injured or too busy to appear for filming. The kind of content you'll see on this program is stretched pretty thin. For crying out loud, 90% of it's just people sitting around and drinking, but they were still able to pull at least 600,000 viewers a week? Incredible! If you ever wanted to see what a heel John Cena might have looked like, look no further than this show. But after the first couple episodes, he's almost nowhere to be seen. Get it? Like the meme? And even many of those scant appearances later in the season make him come off like a dick. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised WWE allowed this footage to air. The show is called Total Bellas, but it should have been renamed Total Brian for how he had to deal with all this crushing life change in real time. But even he was pushed aside to make room for the twins fighting about his problems. And speaking of the twins, both women are sympathetic characters for very different reasons, but most of Nikki's issues seem to come from more selfish reasons than Brie's, and therefore comes off like more of the heel between the two of them.
I wish you died in the womb!
Well, Alex, that was my take on the show, but you're the expert between the two of us, so I have to ask you, what did you think of season 1 of Total Bellas?
Season 1 of Total Bellas was quite the time capsule of moments, but we also have to remember where reality television was at this time. Real housewives running wild in every city across the country, and overly tanned 20-year-olds partying it up in the Jersey Shore. So I would imagine that people that regularly produce wrestling use those shows and those concepts as a blueprint for this show. But I do have to agree with you. They should rename it Total Brian, because really that was the best part of this season. That is the stuff that people would kill to see in documentaries like WWE 24. So there's the good, right? There's the pro there. And I would say the con is definitely the way that they shine the light on John Cena. I was also surprised that they aired all of his stuff. But I'd like to say that he was just an evil NPC. And really, it was kind of foreshadowing with his role now as the Peacemaker.
Like them or not, you can't discount the contributions the Bella twins made to WWE or the female wrestlers they've helped inspire. But despite that, I think I've had my fill of the Bellas and their world of reality TV for now. But if you've watched it, what did you think of Total Bellas? What moments from the show stood out to you? Let me know in the comments. Thanks to Alex, Queen of the Ring, for stopping by for this video. Check out her YouTube channel, her Twitch channel. We are almost done with You Can't See May, and we are wrapping things up next week with a look at Extreme Rules 2012, John Cena versus a returning Brock Lesnar. But give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.